Certification of compliance with open meetings law.
It was posted on the website and the town hall board.
Roll call.
Sauter,
Here.
Martins,
Here.
Gajewski.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Old business, there's none. New business. Number one, discussion and possible action to cancel the annual budget hearing on November 6, 2023. First thing I'll say is nobody wanted to cancel this whatsoever. There was some errors made to the posting. That's a fact. I contacted 3 attorneys, 2 from the WTA and ours. It's in our best interest to reschedule the meeting. We're looking at rescheduling that meeting to the 21st. Reason being, I'm kind of getting to number 2 also, but the reason being, it has to be posted 15 days. I've got emails from people today that probably don't understand that. By law, it has to be posted 15 days from the change.
Any special meeting?
No.
Electors meeting.
So that had to be done. That falls between the 10th and the 17th of the month. One of these gentlemen has plans. He's had the plan since before he got on the board, just like I had a vacation plan the day after I got on the board. But I went. Well, we're not asking to give up his money and so on and so forth, but certainly he would like to be there. So that's where the 21st come in. I'm a deer hunter also. My wife's having surgery the 20th. That's where the 21st come in. Because people come home, a lot of them on Monday from deer hunting, and a lot of people start leaving on Wednesday. If by chance we would have to have a second meeting of the electors, it's putting us in a time crunch to get that meeting done. With what Laura has to do, getting whatever information to the county, taxes, whatever it may be. I don't like it any more than anybody else does, but that's as transparent as I can get about it. Okay. So,
Need a motion?
we need a motion if,
I make a motion that we cancel the annual budget hearing that was scheduled for November 6, 2023. Should we just make it all in one and reschedule for
No, let's do
November?
one at a
That'd be
time.
separate.
okay, there's a motion to cancel the November 6th annual budget hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 2. Discussion and possible action to reschedule the annual budget hearing to November 21st, 23.
I make a motion that we reschedule the annual budget hearing to November 21st, 2023.
Motion's made to reschedule the annual budget hearing to November 21st, 2023. November 21st, 2023. Is there a second?
There is.
Any further discussion?
Just to follow up quickly, have we for surely set a absolute deadline? Should we need a second meeting on how long? I know your email said almost impossible, but that seems to be that there'd be a small
Well,
possibility.
the levy worksheet has to be in by December 15th for the state.
Okay.
And then it just depends on how far out you want the property tax bills to go than the normal do now.
Let me ask a question. Are we allowed, we may not be, I'm asking a question, are we allowed to put a posting up right now for a couple days later in case we need it, and then we can cancel it if we don't? Are we allowed to do that?
I think it says at
That
least.
saves that, helps compact things.
We'd have to have a second set of resolutions to go along with that has the specific, what we decided.
All right, just check.
If you only need 15 days, why are you taking 21?
Because
I
I
just
have a
explained-
previously scheduled event, my nephew's getting married
No,
out of the country,
that went right over my head.
and I booked that back in January, February, before we even were elected to the board, and I'm not gonna miss the
I
wedding.
just know there's some concern about you being so close to Thanksgiving.
That's, again.
We're concerned about that too, but it is what it is.
So the week of the 13th was out for you then?
I am gone from the 10th to the, I don't get back till late on the 17th, yes.
So why couldn't it be the following week? Like the
It
28th?
is.
No,
It's
no.
getting too far out
The
as far
last
as what
week.
she's gotta do.
Well, that just depends if you need the second meeting.
But we
We have to
Right, that's what I'm
have
just
it for the
saying,
second
it just
meeting in
depends.
case we need it.
Right. Okay, number two.
So essentially, if we were to pick the 27th, let's just say, that would leave you 2 days to get all of the information to the state, which to me is a little tight. If we were to have a second meeting and try to post 15 days in between time.
Well, there's a lot of other stuff that's done before or while the levy sheet's being worked on, so all the other things can be done. They're not dependent on a levy increase or whatever the final levy number will be. It's just that the sooner you can get that all in, the sooner the Jefferson County can print off the property taxes, and so that I can get them prepared to get them sent out. I was looking at the letter that I sent out last year, and I think like December 16th was one of the days I had set for office hours. So we must have got it completed, you know, maybe a week or two before then, last year, so that the letters could get processed and sent out. It just means that your residents are not probably gonna get a letter as soon as they typically would for their property taxes.
Because the levy got passed the 29th of November last year. So if you had office hours the 16th, we're essentially looking 18 days, plus or minus whatever.
Yep.
So plus or minus 18 days from the 18th puts you the week before Christmas. You know, like the timeline of this is not convenient for anybody,
Right.
regardless.
Right, but it's just that everything else can be done, it will just be the levy worksheet that we'll think will be the last item that would be waiting for the county to be able to work off of and to get the letters ready to go.
So if we were to push it to the 27th, how comfortable are you from the standpoint of being able to do all of this, should we have a second meeting? That's my question, because, I mean, if we do it the week of deer hunting and Christmas, or people don't get their tax bill notice until the week before Christmas, or they would have already paid it 10 days prior to that, the year before, that, I mean,
Yeah, because a lot
it
of,
is what it is, but I know there's a lot of people that try to clear property taxes
Oh,
before
yeah.
the holiday season, and that means your office hours are pretty much jammed between Christmas and New Year's.
right. But there are a lot of people that like paying it this year, the year out. And not-
Oh, yeah, I know, I mean, that's my point,
Yeah.
is to the point of how much room do we have before we actually run out of time? And back that up with, how comfortable are you?
Because if you had it on the 27th, then you'd be looking at the 12th for the next
Yep.
one, for 15 days?
Yes.
Well, if you take, assuming we don't meet the same night of the meeting, we would meet the next meeting, which would be the 28th, which means that we're at the 13th or potentially 14th of December,
So like December 14th, yeah.
which leaves you 1 day or potentially 2 days. Let's hope you don't get sick on the 14th of December.
Yeah.
Like,
My biggest thing is, as long as we can meet the 15th date for the levy worksheet, then it's up to the county. Then we're at the mercy of the county. Can they get their part done? How fast would that take to get the data input, the letters printed? And then it'll be processing however many, 700 or more, whatever letters there are, to get them out. And then it will be delaying folks on getting it and then being able to pay it within this year. That's gonna be really tight.
Right, and
Yeah.
what is the, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but if we don't get it to the county on time,
yeah,
what's,
you have to.
yes, but if, that's where I'm going with this. If we don't have enough time to make sure we have time to get it to them, what happens if we don't?
I don't know, I've never heard
And
anybody.
we don't wanna find out.
Right. I've never heard anybody that doesn't get it to them.
Can you still have the meeting without Rob participating? Not to be disrespectful of you or anything, I'm just-
He does wanna be here.
but
So-
I understand that, but one person versus the public, basically.
The constituents want to be here too, so.
Well, I mean, it's up to these guys, but I would very much like, because there's gonna be questions, there's gonna be things we have to show and present, there's gonna have to be all this. I'd like to participate on that and not just dump it all on these two, or ask them to take care of it. But ultimately, it's up to these two gentlemen, not just myself.
Any further discussion?
And my saying this is not just because I want to be there. I don't want to put Laura in that situation with very limited time, and I don't want to put all this crunched in type stuff. I'd rather have a little bit of leeway in case something comes up, which things have come up in the last week as well.
So I'm saying, if we could have it a few days earlier than of the previous week without you, and give her a few more days.
I would prefer that you were here, that the entire board was here, because the entire board is accountable for the budget. Not just two people, you are also accountable.
Any further discussion?
May I ask for a point of clarification? The 15-day notice that you're dealing with, it sounds to me like you want to complete one meeting and then go 15 days beyond that for the next meeting?
We may have to have it, we don't know what's gonna happen.
My suggestion might be what we used to do on the school board is we would schedule those meetings so we could notice them in advance, and we would stack them
That's
and
my
use
question.
them if we needed to. So if you schedule a meeting for the 21st, you could stack a 15-day notice for the 28th, or whatever day in December earlier, so that you'd leave more time to get your paperwork finished up that might be more appeasing
I would
to
agree
your
with that
public.
statement, but we gotta know what we're gonna put on the actual agenda. We can't just say we're gonna have another meeting about the, annual budget hearing. There's gotta be specifics with it, am I correct, Josh?
Why can't you schedule one meeting after another? You
So,
don't necessarily have to have 15 days between meetings. You have to have
It's
15
law.
days notice.
Part of what we have to pass is a resolution, and the resolution includes a absolute specific down to the dollar amount that we are asking to exceed the levy. So what we have asked to do is exceed the levy by the budget that has been proposed. If that does not get passed, one of two things: we make up a number ahead of time and see if somebody wants to pass a made-up number that would be potentially lower than that, or we take a third alternative, which would potentially be to issue debt service for the overall remaining majority. But we can absolutely set a meeting date 15 days ahead of time. What goes with that is a resolution with a specific dollar amount. And if we're asking people to exceed the levy, what we don't know, which is partially why we're having this meeting, is what the feedback from the constituents are gonna be at that meeting of, do they support that amount or do they not? It would be easy to say if they don't support it, we go back to the drawing board to zero. There may also be the opportunity that they say, we don't like the idea of exceeding it by the amount you proposed, cut it in half, and the general consensus may be more appealing to those who are here. But unless we're just gonna make up 6 sets of $100,000, $50,000 increments, we can't really post the resolution and the 15-day public notice without some sort of feedback.
I'm saying, can your meeting,
And I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself and say where you
Sean
live?
Cameron. So if you think you've got good numbers, and this is what you want, and this is what you're gonna ask the community to do, and if you need more time to explain it or sell it than what you can accomplish in one meeting,
That's not the case. It's one meeting only. We sell it and they vote the same night. We don't have a presentation day and.
We have to follow the law.
Yeah.
well, you see, I'm not aware of it, so that's why I'm asking, like.
Yeah,
it has
that's
to be all-
why we're trying to clarify some of these times, and I understood some of the emails that came to me today, but probably didn't understand we had to have that separation of 15 days, et cetera. So
Didn't the board last year, when it got voted down, use the year before's levy?
They did. They used what was included in the levy worksheet, and they used LGIP funds to balance
Right,
what was
right,
short.
they didn't ask, get any more, they just used the year before's levy.
Correct.
They never went any further, they never tried anything different.
They didn't have time.
Correct.
Right, and that's what
Because
we're
that
trying,
meeting,
that's what
because
we're
that
trying
meeting
to
was on
avoid.
the 29th.
And that's what we're trying to avoid this
Right.
year.
But
So,
couldn't you put, in the event of a meeting cancellation, you could move it back a week? You're not gonna be changing any numbers, and it's still a 15-day notice then.
I didn't follow you on that one.
Yeah.
you're saying like,
Like a
schedule for
rain
the
meeting.
21st, but in case of a cancellation, have it on the posting that it would be, for example, the 27th. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Cancellation of what though?
If you cancel the meeting on the 21st, for whatever reason,
Why would we?
why are you looking for a second meeting? You think it's not gonna pass?
If it gets voted down, we
We
don't.
don't, we don't know.
We're trying to be prepared.
Well, that's still another event.
Could you find out if you put should,
Oh, I see what you're
let it
saying.
be rejected?
No,
Oh,
never mind.
we would be all for posting the other one, I would think we'd be all for posting the other one right away, so 3 days later, 4 days later, we could potentially have it, but it goes back to what Josh said.
Yeah. I
We
see.
don't, we have, when we post it, we have to have the agenda, and we have to have other documents that have the specific information that we're going to be going after, and because we don't know how the first meeting's gonna turn out, we don't necessarily have that unless we're just gonna put a figure in there.
It's gonna be a very long meeting. There's gonna be a lot of questions.
We want questions.
There's
We haven't come to
gonna
any of these in a while, but they've been 2.5 to 3 hours long here.
it's gonna be even longer, there's gonna be more questions, because there's no way for any of us to tell what is going on in any of these meetings, because you never take a vote to approve the minutes from any of your meetings prior. You've had gone 6 meetings, we haven't approved any minutes for anything prior, so we can't go to the website and say, hey, let's look at the minutes and see what's going on at these meetings.
You're not really, Laura, you wanna respond to that and say?
Well,
we're
typically you don't,
Not approving our minutes or?
well, you typically don't approve meeting minutes except at a regular scheduled meeting. So although we've had several budget meetings or special town board meetings, you usually don't put on those the fact that you're gonna approve the one that you had the week before. That's certainly something we could do, but it's not been past practice. So, yes, I agree, at the November 13th meeting, I think it is, they would be approving all of the special meeting minutes that they've had in October. And again, we don't typically post meeting minutes on the website until they've been approved.
But they're not.
And we don't post meetings from the budget meetings, minutes from the budget meetings.
Yes, we
First of
would.
all,
We would,
we're
but-
starting to get off topic here. Okay,
But let me just say that all of our meetings, whether they be a monthly meeting or special board meetings, are all open to the public. So everybody can come to every meeting if they choose. And we publish minutes, the meetings are videotaped by at least one individual, if not 2, and those are always uploaded as well, so you don't really.
Upload it where?
Well, I don't know, where does Bonnie upload hers?
She doesn't upload.
Oh,
They're on
Jim
YouTube.
does.
Jim Rowland puts
It's
them
not
on
up to a
YouTube.
private citizen to post meetings to.
Didn't
to
we
don't
meet
ask them.
requirements.
Didn't
we
say
don't
that.
ask them to.
He's
Okay, we're
asking for
moving,
the minutes to be posted. There are not minutes to the meetings posted. I can look up an agenda
Once they've been
for
approved.
3 months ago, and I can never see any minutes from it.
Okay, we'll look into that.
The last meeting you approved minutes was on October 9th, and those were the minutes for the September 19th meeting. That's the last time you approved any meeting.
We haven't had a meeting since, sir.
Since the
But those
There's
minutes are
not-
not on the website.
Keep in mind, there's one regularly scheduled board meeting per month.
Right.
So November meetings were approved for September. The coming November meeting will be approved for the October minutes.
My point being,
Okay, done.
we'd be a better informed society if you took minutes and
I
posted.
know Sean's name, and we're done, we gotta move on, because we're getting into a
Don't you have a
situation.
motion on the table?
Yes, we have a motion. There was a second, there was further discussion. Any more on it? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. It's 21st. Discussion of the Wisconsin Disaster Fund reimbursement. Okay, I'll start this discussion. We have a special guest in the audience, I think, that wants to weigh in on this. Scott Johnson, how you doing, buddy? Scott Johnson. Johnson, okay. Anyway, I think these guys screwed me up, I don't know. But anyway, I've talked to Donna, we've been in communication. Donna from the county emergency management, real nice lady, keeps me informed. The money's coming, they were just out now.
Let's back up
Okay.
and explain what the issue is.
The issue is that right now, they don't have the funds to release to us. The fund, the disaster fund, whatever they call it, is exhausted. But they will eventually implement that again and we'll get our money. She said it'll take 2 to 4 months.
When we received notice that, the fund was out of money, and that they were hoping to reapply, that's probably not the right word, to go back to get more funds, but they weren't sure when they were gonna have them, or when it would be ready. So I reached out to Scott Johnson. Scott can introduce himself, but he's our assembly rep for the 33rd district, our district, and asked if he could, I sent him a list of questions, asked him if he could look into this and find out if there's any way he can help us make sure that there are additional funds available to us, and Scott agreed to come to the meeting and talk with us tonight. So, and Frank, between then and now, Frank, you got additional information from the county that it could take 2 to 4 months, but that they felt confident that money would be there. But I'm sure Scott's learned some things too.
You've pretty well stated it. The disaster fund got cleaned out with disasters. It historically is probably what I'll call underfunded, which means that historically will get cleaned out and then it'll have to be refunded. Apparently, either the governor can ask for it in the budget, which he didn't ask for any more funds in it because you don't know how many disasters you're going to have any given year. The legislature didn't add any more funds to the fund because, again, governor didn't ask it, we didn't change it. Now we have a situation where we have a shortfall because of the storms that came through in the amount of damage that took place. There'll be more. I spoke with Donna as well, and she was very forthright with whenever these things occur, the towns, the municipalities get reimbursed. It's just a matter of time. On the school board, we had to account for different expenses that we couldn't get the funds collected for in the current fiscal year, and we'd have to postpone those expenses and those monies that would come in to reimburse them until the following year. So you take a budget and you'd move $2 million into the future year when the state would actually reimburse you for those expenses. I understand there's some budgeting issues here, and as you've already commented on, 2 to 4 months, if you're working out the calendar year budget, it's not likely to get here in this calendar year. So,
We already planned for that.
okay, so I expect that we'll be able to get it. We'll just have to refund the fund enough to take care of what's already been asked for and requested, and hopefully have some more into it for in the future. It's convoluted. I would have liked to have thought it was straightforward and simple, but apparently it's not. But
the simple part about it is that every year, and well, what's convoluted is that it's not its own fund. It's actually taken out of the petroleum inspection fund, which is.
Don't ask me how that ever got dissimulated, because that fund, I would assume, would be working on our rates and measures and roads, and not on disasters, because seldom does a road just get up and walk away.
So now I have a project to look into because he's not happy about that.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more to be looked into.
But so the simple part of it though is that every year, every fiscal year, the fund is given $711,200. That's according to the fiscal bureau. And so that 711,200 has now been used up. My suspicion is I wasn't able today to get the actual itemized of all the disasters that have been
Where the
funded.
money went.
But my suspicion is, there was a report that was done by the fiscal bureau back in last year, and it shows that, you know, this fiscal year was given 700, last fiscal year, 21-22 was given, but then the 2021, you had 1.7 million given into it. So my suspicion is though that, you know, the 2021 year, we knew that was I think that was a good flood year.
Well, there'll be more
so-
general revenue funds put into the fund. It's just,
My suspicion is that we're playing catch up every year from previous disasters from the previous year, because I did ask, I said, are applications that are submitted from towns or villages, if let's say, so like your guys' application, let's then say there's another disaster, don't want one, but like 4 months from now or 2 months from now, does that mean that they get first or you guys first? And now what I was told is that it's usually in order of application. So I don't know how many other applications are in front of you,
but you're gonna,
Is this just the county or is it statewide?
it's statewide.
Statewide.
So 700,000 for the
Yeah.
whole state.
Correct. And that little storm that came through, not so little, through Jefferson County, took out some $280,000, or what was it, $300,000 that we saw in the.
something like that, yeah.
All right, so that takes, let's just say half the fund. Well, there's more than one storm in the state. Historically, over the past 10 years, it's varied from less than 400,000 to over, 3 million has been the variation that has been paid out for these type of disasters,
I guess
emergency funds.
a question I would have for the board, since you guys are talking about a levy issue and things like that, is, so the other caveat is that every year when the fund is refunded, it's on July 1st. So the fund is gone and it won't have more money until July 1st, 2024. That's what the fiscal bureau told me.
Correct.
So
That's our budget year, that's our
Right.
budget year. The state's budget starts on
So if
July
that
1st.
is the case, does that put, like, let's just say, worst case scenario, for right now, of what we know, let's just say that you guys have to wait till after July to get reimbursement. Where does that really,
We need to just get it in the next year, that's what it comes down to.
Well,
Hopefully not December 31st, but we need to,
right,
you know,
Couple of points to that. When we went through the budget process, having dealt with FEMA recovery funds in the past, I was very hesitant to think that a storm that we were going to close out paperwork in October was gonna be refunded by the end of '23. Just
Okay.
because.
Okay.
So our reimbursement portion was put into the '24 budget. It was also put into the '24 budget as a potential balance of revenue. So in the grand scheme of it, if our, a portion of it anyways, in the grand scheme of it, the big thing for us is that if our budget gets passed as it's presented, as it's gonna be asked, is that we don't expend that $48,000, whatever it was, prior to July 1st. And that we at least keep balance on 50/50 through July of next year, to make sure that we
okay,
won't run into a shortfall, but.
okay.
Hopefully, we'll have better feedback
Yeah.
relative to timing. It's the timing issue that I guess I'm most concerned about right now. I'm comfortable with the fact that we're gonna have the funds, it's just a matter, are they available within 2 months or 8 months? And I can't understand why we would have quote-unquote an emergency fund that apparently we don't fund. And we can't reimburse local municipalities for their expenditures for cleanup.
and I had sent a several questions.
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
And one of them is, at what point, because they didn't suddenly wake up last week and go, oh, we're out of money. They knew that they were getting low at some point, and at what point did they decide, okay, well, we pay everybody's, we just go in order and pay them, and then we're out, as opposed to stepping back going, you know what, we're gonna run low, we'll run out by here, let's be fair to everybody, and everybody gets 50% of their, I'm picking a figure, 50% of their reimbursement, so we can spread it out and we're not hitting a specific few communities as opposed to everybody sharing in the pain.
That may be better than what currently took place, but I am just astounded by the fact that we have an emergency fund that apparently we can drain with one storm. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. We need to figure out a different system so that the local municipalities can get the support they need, because you can't wait 4 years to rebuild a highway.
Well, we also know, especially by the email from the emergency management caseworker, that she said in the email, which she did not type well, because she essentially, because me and Scott were talking about it, it's like, well, that makes sense why the board would think that they're not getting any money, but
The emails that you were receiving, when you read that email,
it just sounds like, oh,
it
no.
sounds like, yeah, we're just out of money and you're not gonna get it. And I made that point very clear to Donna, and I said, that's not an acceptable way to respond to our municipalities. If the funds are gonna come to them, because they've submitted their billing, let them know that. If it's gonna take 8 months, let them know that.
Yeah.
Well, and send out a note.
And if it irritates the heck out of it and we all jump on your case because it's gonna take 8 months, we need to correct that problem that's causing that delay.
Well, also, she said in your email, she said that you guys are eligible for 70% to be reimbursed. So that doesn't mean that, nowhere, unless you guys have other emails that I haven't seen, but nowhere does that tell me that you've been approved for 70%.
The email I forwarded you, they did have a specific number.
Correct.
And stated that.
Okay.
So it was approved. And the other part about this is,
Okay.
depending on, they knew this was gonna dry up at some point.
Yeah.
Let communities know it's
Exactly.
likely, because when we're almost done with our budget, it's a bad time to learn about this.
Correct.
Because to your question earlier, if we get it after July 1st, how big an issue is that? We don't know if there's another disaster early in the year, heavy snow and trees
Yep.
down all over,
Yep.
whatever. It could be a big problem for us not getting it early in the year. So I don't know how to answer that question because we just don't know what we don't know, right?
What it's uncovered for me is the fact that we need to figure out the process so it's much more accountable and much more responsive. To have something where you ask municipalities to go through all the paperwork, jump through all the hoops, takes them 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks to get that done. And then there's nothing there to be looked at, to be sent back. It just, to me, it's just irresponsible. It just doesn't seem to be logical, practical, or common sense, any of that there. And that vacuum needs to be filled.
Yeah, and we actually did not have anything in any budget line item for emergencies. So when this all came about and we knew we were getting this reimbursement, and we wouldn't get it till '24, we actually created, like Josh said, line items for it, where when we got this reimbursement, we were putting it into an emergency management fund. So if something happened, we could draw from that as opposed to robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And fund balances, school boards use fund balances, and they can move from year to year quite a bit because you have the money on hand to take care of the bills, but there's an ebb and flow on those. And it's
The governor has a $6 billion
it's no different
surplus to do this, so.
than farming. I mean, there's some years they make good money farming, and there's some years they had a lot of fun. and their fund balance just goes down. Anyway, that's, I'm not here with a check, but I'm gonna be following up on it.
What will be the process going forward, when more funds are available? Will you,
I will be keeping you informed as to what I learned, because I want to get your questions answered, because I want to use those as a means of getting the people in charge to explain to us what the process is, why it is, what is the, because it may be something that either the legislature can address or the governor can address, and we can get this thing going. I don't know if it requires legislative process or not, but what we're uncovering today is just not acceptable. And it's not something that Donna's done. I mean, Donna's been in that role, and she's done this for years, and I've never heard complaints about her, you know, work ethic and her protocols and whatnot. It's just,
I mean, I tried calling the emergency management office today. Not Donna, but the state. And the Department of Emergency Management is actually falls under the Wisconsin Military Affairs Office.
it's getting
So-
convoluted.
Then you have to press 9 and you get to emergency management and nobody answered. I was like, oh, so a tornado just hit my house. Guess you won't answer. Okay. So I think to the representative's point, you know, at the very least what we can do is we can write up legislation or whatnot that can actually clean up the process a little bit and hold the department actually accountable to getting answers to municipalities.
well, very much appreciate
Yep, thank you
coming to
very
the
much.
meeting. I reached out to Scott and Lucas on Thursday, I think it was.
It was
Thursday, and on very short notice, he was here at our meeting on Monday night. So Scott went out of his way to help us. What I hear, he's gonna go out of his way to continue to help us. And I think we should all understand and appreciate the fact that we have a very responsive rep in the assembly for this district. So appreciate your coming. Our regular meetings are the second Monday of every month, starting
Okay.
at 6. You're always welcome to join us.
So are you having a regular meeting on the second Monday of?
13.
Oh, you will be, okay, so the 21st isn't gonna, that's just the budget thingy. Oh, okay.
It's the 13th.
I think it's the 13th.
It is the 13th.
Okay. The challenge with the town meetings are, a number of them line up on the same day, same time. I think I caught a Sullivan Village meeting and a Sullivan Town meeting one time because they started half hour different. So
If anything,
it's
what we can
challenging.
do too is like, since he came to this one, if there is one on that day, I may send him to a different town, but I can for sure come to
Well,
this.
you're always welcome. We certainly don't expect you to be at every meeting, given your position and everything you're responsible for. But just so you know, you're always welcome.
It's okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on number 3? Okay, if not, we'll move forward.
Well, just the only thing I would say, and maybe you say this falls somewhere else, but it sounds like we're gonna get it, so eventually, so it'll stay in the budget as us receiving it. We'll just have to, so we don't have to change anything there. So it looks like we'll just have to manage until we get it.
Okay, number 4, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2023-006, repealing resolution 2023-005 to exceed the levy limit via a special electors meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Any further discussion? There's been a motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2023-007 to exceed the levy limit via a special electors meeting.
I I make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-007 to exceed the levy limit via special electors meeting.
A motion's been made to approve resolution 2023-007 to exceed the levy limit via a special electors meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoa. Discussion.
Oh, any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
After our snafu last week, I went through all 8 meetings that we've had pertaining to this, and I have a question regarding what I think is a typo in our revenue under 43,650-2.
Forest
I'm
cropland.
sorry, 43,620, I'm sorry.
In lieu of tax on state conservatory?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm guessing that 1,400 is supposed to read 14,000, and that there is a zero missing in there, given what our last 2 years of revenue have been. And I look back through my notes, and I think it was the one that we were playing with Frank's tax bill on a Thursday or Tuesday night to see what the increase was. I also see that you've got double question marks next to it on the draft that we saw last week.
That's just because I wasn't clear on where that came from. Typically, I would get a letter or some document from a state.
Where'd it go?
Okay. Typically, I would get a letter or something from the state that would tell us what the funds are for next year. And that's a note to me that I'm not clear on where that would come from. So like the 2 lines down, that comes from the DOT, the line above, that comes from the DOA. So that one I wasn't quite sure where that came from.
So the reason why that stood out to me, obviously, is because it's very, very similar to 14,000, which is what the budget
Yeah.
was for 23, and a simple zero exclusion there. The other part of it is that $12,600 makes a relatively sizable difference when you start playing the game of what does that per thousand rate then come out to
Yeah.
in the levy worksheet that we've been playing with.
Do we have any reason to believe it's gonna be that significantly less?
I don't remember off the top of my head if we made that 1,400 or did we make it 14,000 and then drop to zero. I'd have to go back through all the notes I have in each of the meetings.
So here's the next piece of the puzzle, given the information that Representative Johnson provided to us, is do we want to short it on that, assuming that, play the game, right? You go down to the emergency management fund that's got 44,902 in it and assume it's really going to be 30,902. I mean, you're playing the same numbers in the same game, but 2 points of conversation, I think, given the fact that everything that has transpired, and we kind of got one last bite at the apple here.
So you think it should be changed to 14,000?
I have no basis to make an educated guess on that, other than the fact
The
that.
educated guess would be the last 2 years.
Correct.
So I would have, I'd be a little concerned about trying to balance it by taking out the emergency fund after what we just talked about.
Right, my point would be is if we raise that to $14,000, to the conversation that we had 2 Sundays ago, or whatever it was, a Sunday ago, and use that back in fund balance, knowing that if this emergency management fund doesn't get replaced until July, I mean, there's more liability, whatever you want to call it, for us to cover that in the meantime.
I didn't understand the last part.
So if we change that to $14,000 as a round number,
Yep.
and then reduce that 44,902 by 12,600, it ends up being the same amount of money, it's just showing the funding in different categories.
Yeah, that part I understand the math.
Yep.
Why did you pick that one versus a different one?
Convenience.
So what you're saying is,
I-
it's not gonna change anything.
Item number 3 on the agenda, I guess.
What you're doing is trying to change things so we don't have to change any of the figures.
Well, either that or we change them to reflect the 44,902 and 14,000, which would reduce the overall levy amount from 232 down to 220. The increase we're asking for. I'm using round numbers, so.
So therefore, the increase on the levy would be less. How much less, you know?
I prefer to reduce the levy request.
Well, I agree with you there.
And that's a bucket where, once we get a check from the state, they tell us whether or not we can keep the whole check or if we have to distribute it amongst other entities. So it looks like back in '22,
Which one, line,
the 43620.
okay.
So back in 2022, it looks like we got one check for 16 and a half roughly and another check for 5,000. And we had to give some to Jefferson County, we had to give some to Palmyra Eagle, and we had to give some to Waukesha County. And then we got another check for like 11,700 that we got to keep all of it.
What, we ended up with $14,115, is that? what
Right,
you said?
yep, yep.
So out of